on Genesis chapter 1. Let's move up to
Amen.
the next one. God gave us dominion so we can abuse animals if we want to. Everybody's favorite. It seems like, to me, that's the stupidest reply I could ever get. Because when a carnist Christian tells me that God gave us dominion, I'm like, you don't know what dominion means. So let me teach you what dominion means in the Bible, okay? I think the big problem started when the Bible was broken up into chapter and verse. Surprise, the Bible wasn't written in chapters and verses. The Bible is a big book, but it's not one book. It's 66 different books. It's got 31,000 verses. It's got 1,100 chapters in there. It was written by kings and priests. It was written by murderers and tax collectors. It was written by slaves. It contains songs and poetry. One of the books in there is actually just a play. All of this is in that one book we call the Bible, but it's really 66 books. So let's say you were studying the Bible and you want to try and find a specific verse, like in Proverbs, where it says, God says, a righteous man cares for his animal. Wonderful vegan verse, right? If I tell you to look for it, you go in, you grab your Bible, and you go, all right, Proverbs, it's a big honking book, Steve. Where the fudge is this verse? Okay, you couldn't find it. So what happened was a bunch of monks around about the 13th century got together and they said, we can't find this sentence you're telling us about. So they came up with the idea of breaking all the books down into chapter and verses. Okay, so it wasn't in there. Like when the Apostle Paul wrote his letter to the church of Galatia, which we call Galatians, that's in the New Testament, he didn't write it with chapter and verse. He wrote a letter just like you guys would write a letter, write an email or whatever. It's the way you would write a letter. This chapter and verse thing was done to make study easy. That ended up becoming a problem because when it's taught in a church today in the 21st century and all, they're looking at one verse, taking it out, and making a whole sermon around it, instead of realizing the whole context. Now, when it comes to the word dominion, the entire context comes starting in Genesis 1:28 and ending in 1:31. It's only about five, 6 sentences together. Okay? But if you just read it by itself, and God said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, and subdue it and have dominion. I don't know why my highlight skipped over there, no big deal. Over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. No problem there. You don't want to argue. God gave man dominion. I agree with it. But what does dominion mean? Verse 29. And God said, this is the next sentence. God said, behold, again, you've heard me read this before. You're going to hear this verse over and over until you're like, Steve, shut up. All right? God said, behold, I've given you every herb-bearing seed, which is on the face of the earth, and every tree, which is the fruit, blah, blah, blah. To you it will be food. Okay? And the King James calls it actually meat. Meat is just another word for food. But it's the next sentence. So God gives us dominion. In the very next freaking sentence, after we get dominion, God puts vegan boundaries on dominion. When they say we have dominion, yes, but God gave you a vegan boundary. It does not give you the right to kill animals. It's not even it. Do you follow that? It's just absolutely amazing to me that they even try to use dominion. There's no way it can involve that, especially when we've got verse 29, our cloud, I'm going to go back to it so you can see it, that we're to eat plants. Also, the animals are to eat plants. We were talking about translations, literalists, something fun about the King James, they will use the word for meat. When you read it, the original word wasn't meat, the original word was food. But again, King James translating in the 1600s, being a meat-eating society, they looked at the word and said, oh, we'll put in meat. It was normal to them. But in the original Hebrew, it was, what is the word? Is it okla? Is that it? Help you?
Ochla.
Well, say it again.
Ochla.
And does that mean animal food? It means food in general.
Ochel is food and ochla is another way to say food.
Thank you.
How do you spell that?
So remember this. The next time a Christian says to you, God gave us dominion, like, yes, but did you read the next sentence? That's your easiest answer. That's when you want to bust out your phone and say, yes, in 28 you've got dominion, in 29 there are vegan boundaries. Yes?
What I do with dominion is I ask people, do you have children? And they go, yeah. Do you have dominion over your children? They go, yeah, of course. I go, does your dominion include what is happening to these animals? Do you think that is an interpretation of dominion?
Oh yeah.
And they're like, next topic.
Yeah, that's good, but what I'm trying, and those are great. I've heard those many, many times. I'm trying to think of what vegan activists that are popular that have used that. First time I heard that. Okay, what I'm trying to do, what I think is going to make what I'm trying to do is a little bit different, is I'm trying to show you from God's point of view how to fight it, rather than just like, I'm smarter than you, I would never abuse my children. What makes you think of dominion over your children?
So I could just add in, when God gives you dominion over your children, is there boundaries on that? Because in the Bible...
You could, but I'm going to stick to just using the Bible, because this is what they believe. This is not what we believe. You guys, we can all keep
No, that's
whatever...
what I'm saying, is using your vegan, that there's boundaries to dominion.
And God gave those vegan boundaries. I don't want to apply it to humans, because people are not... Christians don't want to equal animals and people together. So I rarely say, well, would you do that to your kids? Because animals are a totally different subject to them. It's like they're alien. They're not even in the same ballpark. But the point I'm trying to say is, do I want to start that argument now? Not really. I just want to show them that their God, my God, the one I believe in, gave me vegan boundaries to my dominion, so I'm going to behave like that. Because while I'm alive, I'm living in God's image. When you guys see me, I want you to see God. Okay? God said vegan. I'm vegan. It's that simple. You see how that works? I'm not criticizing him or trying to get him to equate animals and humans together. Even though I agree they are much higher than what they give them credit for, I don't want to fight that.
No, not equating, just the word itself. A lot of people, I had never thought about it. I'd always assumed dominion, growing up as a Christian, that dominion included what is done to animals, because I was given dominion. But the word itself doesn't include that kind of abuse. Like those. I might have other words for that type of dominion. So
we can go further. We can go further on with other examples of dominion. There's a wonderful thing called the concordance. Now, back when I was Bible studying, we didn't have internet. We had what was called the Strong's Concordance. It's a book that's about, it's 9 by 12, so it's a big book, and it's like that thick. And it would list I'd look up dominion, and I'd see everywhere in the Bible where it lists dominion. And it's really interesting, but all those things about dominion talk about good kings and bad kings. And when it says you're using your dominion badly, it's when you're hurting something. A good king wouldn't use dominion to hurt something. So those are just really interesting, more verses you could add to your argument if you want to, but I've been able to stop every Christian dead in his path with just that. Because they don't know where to go with that. They've never read the next verse, which is really sad. They just took that one verse and they built their whole theology around it.
Which is ironic, because that's what we're often accused of, is taking it out of context.
In the context, let's add a little more context to Genesis. Where did that happen? Garden of Eden. Okay, let me go to the next slide. Where did Genesis happen? In the Garden of Eden. Was there death in the Garden of Eden? No. Death did not enter the world, according to Romans chapter 5, until sin entered the world in Genesis chapter 3. So, and here, when Moses is talking about Adam and Eve, and them getting dominion, there was no death. They would not see animals as food in any way or form. You got it? So, we might hear dominion as a reason to eat animals, but the people who originally heard it didn't. Whenever you look at a verse, if you want to kind of get out of your own personal bias, ask the 5 W's. Who, what, where, when, and why. Who wrote it? Who was it written to? Why was this item written? Was it trying to correct a problem? Was it trying to answer a question? What was the political, social, and religious culture of the time? Where was this going on? Was it going on in a city that was under war? Was it going on in a city under peace? All these things can add to a different understanding of the things that are being said. So always ask those 5 W's. Okay, that's very important. So again, there's no way they would have saw dominion as killing animals or killing anything, because there was no death. They didn't even have a concept of death until Genesis chapter 3. And even then, when God said, if you eat from the apple, you all remember that. Adam and Eve ate from the apple, all of a sudden you're going to die. Well, he kicked them out of the garden, so they couldn't die in the garden. There was no death in the garden. Adam didn't die for 930 years later. Okay, so there was no death in the garden. There's no way dominion could be eating any animals. All right, I'm going to go a little bit forward here because we went a little bit long on that, and I want to try and get to some of the other subjects, so let me just skip through some of this stuff. Do we have any other questions about the dominion before I move into what you brought up earlier? No, good, silence. I'm either giving you all the information you need or I'm just confusing you beyond understanding.
I think
All right, let's go to the next one then.